Welcome to the Artist Work Ethic Podcast. I'm Mike Pelak. I'm a screenwriter and filmmaker who's always looking to maximize my time and potential as I work to break in. In this podcast, I talk to artists of all kinds who have seen success in their fields about their process, habits, and work ethic. Today on the show is Spencer Hutchins. Spencer is a camera operator and cinematographer based in Atlanta, Georgia. He's worked on a ton of TV shows and films, a few of which are 911, Star, Stand Against Evil, Respect, and Joe Dirt 2. And he's also got a cinematography podcast called Protecting the Frame. A couple quick things before we jump into the episode. I've talked in the past about myself working on breaking into screenwriting. Please check out blackoilfilms.com/screenwriting. There you can check out some of the screenplays I've written. I have the first 10 pages of each one uploaded, but feel free to email me at theartistsworkethicpodcast@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to send you a full script if you're interested in reading. The script I want to highlight today is a feature drama called Stay What You Are. Stay What You Are is about a workaholic, former punk rocker who desperately attempts to relive his rock and roll glory days through his daughter's 10th birthday party, while his marriage and career hang in the balance. Last thing before we get into the episode, I would love anyone listening to subscribe, rate, and review the Artist's Work Ethic Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps us put the show out there for more people to listen to. All right, Spencer, thank you for coming on with me today.
Hey, yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
So looking at your IMDb, you definitely work a lot, and I see a pretty clear progression from camera assistant to camera operator, and it looks like you're starting to get some, DP or cinematographer credits. In addition to that, you've got a podcast called Protecting the Frame. Where are you finding that drive and creativity?
That's a great question. It began, as a kid. So it's a very similar story to everyone else. I saw my dad playing with the camera for the church we grew up in, and found an interest in that. And I think I don't know. I certainly didn't know what I was doing at the time, or why I enjoyed it so much. But nowadays, I think what continues to, I guess, bring me back or continue to do the work in general is this idea that you're taking something that's so technical and you're applying it to something that's not. And to be in a perfect situation, every show is different, of course, but in a perfect situation, you're kind of that liaison between, how do we achieve this, emotional scene and help kind of tell that the story through the lens. So it's that continual pursuit that, I guess, for me is interesting enough to keep coming back to it.
So do you think your work ethic comes from, something in how you were raised, or has something else in your life, fostered that and propelled you forward?
What first comes to mind are examples of work ethic that I grew up with. I think my immediate answer would be something that I was taught, or I was able to at least experience through, certainly my father, my mother as well. Even my older brother, I saw many things that they were able to accomplish through, doing work. We were not kids that didn't do work on the weekends with dad. He had plenty of businesses going on that we were required to be a part of, obviously. So I think a lot of that was being thrown into not only seeing it being done, but kind of being forced to see how it is done. In that you would do, work and get paid for it, or you would do work and see some kind of fruits of that labor down the road. So I think at some point that led into sports. I played a lot of basketball, did a lot of team sports. I think that's a great example for kids to say, hey, look, all this work you're putting into now here's the tournament. This is the fruit of the labor. So I think. It seems as if it would be more examples that I've seen.
A recurring theme on this podcast has been that people who have found success in their art have done things to set themselves apart from their peers. or to add value? What sort of thing do you think that you've done, to set yourself apart and get hired for the job and move up that ladder?
Yeah, certainly as a camera assistant, I remember being very intentional about alleviating maybe not responsibilities, but tasks from immediate bosses and bosses. Assuming that alleviation was welcomed, of course. There's certainly people who want to keep all the hands on everything, which I completely understand. But I had learned early on that if they can become more reliant on me by me taking those responsibilities away, and they know they no longer have to worry about it, and do a good job on those tasks, that you're likely going to become an asset to them and be hired more often.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems, I think that could apply to so many things, is just
Yeah.
making yourself invaluable, and your bosses wanting to keep you on and then wanting to bring you on to the next show they might be working on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everyone knows the secret to this. It's 90% of what we do, or maybe whatever number it is. It's just being fun to be around. My business is in 10, 11, 12 plus hours with these people every day. So just being a likable person is a huge part of it. But beyond that, obviously you're there to do a job. If you're fulfilling a position, but then also have these other skills, other things that bring more value to you as a product in a way, or a service in a way. If you can continue to build on that, I see no reason why people wouldn't hire you.
Aside from being on set when you are working on a show or a film, what are you doing kind of on a daily or weekly or monthly basis to stay as proficient as possible in your craft and also in, your business side of things?
Well, for me, I'm a camera operator, and that's what I do all the time. So and this isn't the case. Not all camera operators need to be fit by any means. I mean, there's plenty of shows where you rarely stand up off of a dolly. But that's an important part for me is to remain healthy and ready to do these hard handheld jobs, or something. I found myself in those situations pretty often. So that's been something that's it's also a mental thing for me as well. Obviously watching movies is great. I think it's a good habit to build. I'm terrible at it. I'll watch, my wife and I watch shows together. But in terms of like watching the new stuff that comes out, I'm really bad at it. Luckily, my podcast and talking to these people who make the movies that are coming out, I get enough of that information.
Yeah, once you get those couple of kids, it's kind of over.
I tell you what, man, I can tell you a lot about Encanto and all the Disney movies coming out. But which, by the way, those are great movies. Talk about movies that really can use that lens to tell a story, or just overarching motifs that you hear or see, and even talking through that about that stuff, like with my daughters, is kind of a fun. It's a like you may know what's happening, but to having to explain it to a 5-year-old is a learning experience for myself. So it's sometimes on set I feel like we're talking to 5-year-olds. So it's a helpful thing. But I think there's inspiration all around us in terms of just telling good story. I think you see that in podcasts. I think I listen to a lot like Bill Simmons. He's a great storyteller. I think you see that in I'm a Christian. I think there's a ton of that stuff in the Hebrew Bible. Maybe it's just my perspective trying to look for it. But yeah, I think that stuff's everywhere.
And how important has being a good collaborator been to what you've achieved so far?
I think it's huge. Not that it's something that I've achieved, but it's certainly something that I've been working on. I think it's just like any good relationship. You have to understand that you're going to have to take give and take. And not only that, as a camera operator, I think there's this. There are certainly those operators out there, or at least the idea of these operators, of these alpha guys that are calling the shots and telling the director what we're going to shoot, and that does happen. And I seem to think that it's kind of an old school thing that's on its way out. I think you have to understand that in the end, this isn't your movie. You're there for a reason, of course. Like you're valued, and there's a reason you were there. And so to bring up things that may not be taken, ideas that might be taken, but those ideas, bringing them is still part of your job. So I think understanding that it isn't your movie, and that you do have people to answer to is an important part to remember when you're talking about the collaboration of a project. Certainly, at least as a camera operator.
And what in your work ethic do you think has gotten you to the point that you're at now? And what's that next step that you're trying to take from your current position to what you want to be doing in, 1 year, 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, and also in examples of others that I've seen do well, I think a key part, at least specifically to the film industry, is that it's a problem solving industry, and many industries are. It's like we go into a location, rarely ever seeing it beforehand. At least I'm not always part of a like technical scout of a location, and you're there to solve problems. And so that being the case, I think having a perspective of like an outlook of continually trying to find the solutions to the problems, no matter how dire it looks. I think that is a good aspect of finding how to kind of pursue forward with that stuff. And I see a lot of people that do well in this business do well at that one thing. Next, I was on some sort of a kind of fast track to becoming a cinematographer. I'd shot many movies, a lot of second units on TV shows, and over the last year or two, I've questioned if that's the pursuit I want to go. So which is great, because I really do enjoy my job as a camera operator. So the idea of potentially not moving to the next step of that and just kind of being where I'm at, which is a job I really enjoy, I was able to pursue a specialty in Steadicam, which is something that I withheld from doing for years because I didn't think that I wanted to stay in this position. So it looks like that's kind of the foreseeable future.
Awesome. Anything that you want to plug before we go? If you want to talk about your podcast for a second?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned how, and I appreciate that. It's Protecting the Frames Cinematography podcast. We do a lot of the stuff that you kind of talk about, Mike. Just more specific to the camera world in the film world.
Man, thank you for coming on with me today.
I appreciate it, Mike.
Thank you so much for listening today. Please subscribe to the Artist Work Ethic podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, and please rate and review the show. Follow us on Instagram at The Artist's Work Ethic, and check out theartistsworkethic.com.